Edmonton, ESPN.
All right, we are here at Crypto.com Arena following that. All right, 4-1, the Kings fall to the Avalanche. It is Kings talk, everybody. Get fired up, please, and excited. And who the hell is this guy talking to you, right? Yes, it's Sam Betesh. I'm here, the host of Kings Talk, a proud Kings fan for 3 decades. And I will admit to everybody, as wild as this is, my dad is from Philadelphia. I grew up a Flyers fan, but my first sporting event ever was watching Wayne Gretzky as a King at the Great Western Forum. I'm here with Jared Shafran. And Jared, we had so much fun watching this game. So much fun at the beginning. And by the way, Jared Shafran, for those that don't know, he will be calling play-by-play right here in this booth where we are right now. I believe in November, Jared, it kicks off the Jared Shafran Kings Tour, right? We're going to have a little play-by-play with you, Jared, and we cannot wait for that. And, of course, thanks to everybody here that is listening with us right now. You can also call us. We will get to those calls eventually, but we have to deal with this. Jared, first of all, hello and welcome, and thank you for being part of the first Kings Talk. And you can hear us tonight, AM 710, and of course, as always, on the ESPN LA app. Now, Jared, thanks for being here. I can't wait till November, till we get to see you and hear you on these broadcasts. But you want to give me maybe just some initial thoughts? I want to go back to positives eventually, but maybe we can deal with the reality of what tonight was before we get to that.
Yeah, sure. First of all, Sam, what an intro. Thank you so much. I'm not going on tour anytime soon, so don't buy any tickets. But, no, I mean, obviously for tonight's game, you know, definitely a big disappointment. I think there's no way around that. I think Josh and Daryl summed it up pretty well. I think there's the positive for me. There's a game tomorrow for the LA Kings, right?
Sure.
And it's this game 1 of an 82-game season. So, you know what? You can't dwell on it. You don't have time to dwell on it. You got to start preparing for Vegas. That's a very, very formidable team. But to actually look at the nuts and bolts of this game, I don't know that the Kings did a lot of things well in this game. I think they in the first period, I think they started off okay. The first 10 minutes or so, I thought they got a good buzz from the crowd. They unveiled these new third jerseys that we're going to talk about in a minute, and those were awesome. And I think the vibe in here was great, and I think they started off okay. But the thing is, they weren't able to cash in on the scoreboard, right? So then Colorado was able to stem that momentum. They start playing their own game. The Kings take some too many penalties. They're in the penalty box for too much of this game. Didn't get enough shots on goal. Didn't do well when they had their power play opportunities to try to come back into this game. And then at the end of the game, it got sloppy, and there was some, I think some guys who need to get their emotions in check, right? Kevin Fiala takes a bad penalty late in the game. Brant Clark, the game was in hand by that point, but, he's
Clark
kind of
penalty.
inciting
Yep.
Colorado there.
Yep.
So I think there's some emotions that the Kings need to keep in check. Look, there was some frustration. They wanted to be better tonight. They weren't. They got to move on quickly, but there wasn't a lot of things that we can say, oh, wow, they're doing these great things. Like, there wasn't a lot of that tonight.
No, it wasn't close, and frankly, the second period really spelled the game. If you go back and look at just the second period there, Jared, that really was where the game was competitive and then all of a sudden was not. Now, we're going to go back to something positive that happened undeniably tonight, and we knew it was going to happen. We knew that tonight was going to kick off what I am calling, Jared, the Kopi-Tour. That's what this season is going to be.
That's a tour you got to buy a ticket to.
Yes, the Kopi-Tour, which is what this season will be defined by. And again, I think Kopi-Tour did the right thing. He said before the season started, I'm going to get well ahead of this. I don't want it to be a question. I don't want it to be a distraction. Now, the definition of the word distraction is something we're going to have to speak to each night of this season because, yes, it's not a distraction in that we know what he's going to do and where he's going to be next season, but is it a distraction in the way that now the team is sort of thinking, all right, this is the end. We have to sort of play for Kopi. And then in each stadium he goes to, that's going to be a storyline that he's going to have to deal with. But that aside, the way it started in this building tonight, Jared, it was electric. And the crowd was not only excited to see Kopi-Tour come out, the first moment that was exciting wasn't about Kopi-Tour at all. Let's go back to what happened. You looked at me, you nudged me, you kind of elbowed me, and you said, Sam, do you know what's happening? And I didn't, and all of a sudden I look at it and I realize, oh, wow. Because on Saturday we were here for the final preseason game, and I'm getting questions. Sam, do you happen to know what the third jersey is going to be? Do you know when the third jersey is going to be revealed? And guess what? It happened to start the game tonight. Now, Jared, I want you to tell us what happened. The players were out here for warm-ups in standard jerseys, even though I love the
standard
jerseys.
home black
the
jersey.
standard home black
that the
jersey,
Kings
which, by the
unveiled
way,
last year.
is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that jersey, right? That is sort of, we'll call it the Gretzky emblem.
Sure.
I know Luke might like us to call it the Robitaille emblem. That's okay, too. It is that emblem, and it is fantastic. What a crest that it is. But let's talk about not only the silver helmets, which, wow, those are spectacular, but the jersey itself, and you kind of knew it. Jared, tell us about what happened. The players were out here with one jersey, and all of a sudden they come out, the lights are flashing, and what happened?
Yeah, I think so. The Kings kind of pulled a little trickery.
It was a trick.
They definitely wanted that surprise element. They came out for warm-ups in their standard home black jersey that they wore last year. They went through a pretty standard warm-up. Now, there was some people online that were noticing that the socks were different. So
by the way, that is elite
to
investigative knowledge.
Well, if you
really
have good
is.
seats
Yeah,
and you're paying
true.
for the good seats on the glass, you can
Yes.
see that the socks were, instead of white socks, they were silver. So a little bit of a different shade, obviously a little bit darker on the silver. So that was maybe a little bit of a tip-off, but what the Kings did is actually they were about to enter the ice to announce the full team for the start of the game.
That was awesome also.
And they played a video that was stock footage from last year
so good.
of the guys like getting fired up in the tunnel. So if you're watching that, you're like, oh, the guys are getting fired
They're
up in
there.
the tunnel. You're
Yep.
not seeing anything. Now, if you're really
Wardrobe change.
Again, if you're a really investigative person, you saw that in that video, Jacob Moverari and Samuel Hellenius were in that video, and that's what makes you realize it's stock footage, because those guys were sitting up in the press box. They had just been introduced on the bench as scratches for tonight. But anyway, that video kind of rolls. You're thinking, okay, they're just getting ready to go. Then they start getting introduced, but right before they started getting introduced, they blacked out all the lights
So cool.
and played basically an intro video for the silver third alternate jersey that they're going to be wearing this season. And then everyone just started skating out on that jersey, and it was just like, holy cow, they're wearing this tonight.
It was so cool. I mean, look, as empty as this building is right now, as quiet as it is, it was at an elite playoff level when this thing started. Not only for the jerseys, then for Kopi-Tour to come out. And I want to ask you, those jerseys, now a couple of things. I'm wearing gear. I'm the only guy in the press box in gear tonight, by the way, Jared. I mean, I love it. You've got the beautiful pin here on your jacket. Everybody keeps it real old school up there. Everybody likes it. You know,
It's a hockey press box.
It is just.
You can't be a
it's
fan
a
in the press
very
box.
professional. So I'm sitting there kind of holding it in, But look, I've got great gear. But the big news of tonight is, Jared, we need new gear.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's what.
Got to grab
that's
a new jersey.
The story of tonight is we need new gear, and I want one of those silver helmets also. I think maybe I'll do a post game in the silver helmet at some point. But the question everyone wants to know, Jared, not only where can I get my gear, when will we see that jersey again? What's the plan with that jersey?
So the Team LA store has the gear, so you can get it online now. Obviously, all the links available on King's social media, King's website. It's everywhere. Right when that jersey came out, they flipped the store. So like, if you were in the building tonight and you went to the store pregame, you didn't see any of that merch. You didn't see that jersey. But then, after warm-ups were done, they actually flipped the store over, and fans were walking around tonight to watch the game in those jerseys because they had them available for sale right away. So they're all available for sale right now. If you want one of those, you can grab one right away. You can head to the Team LA store in person, try it on, get to touch it, or you can buy it online, get it shipped to your house in a couple days. You'll have one for the next home game. The Kings will be back here against Pittsburgh pretty soon. But
and it's Saturday home games, right? We're going to see those.
So yeah, then that's the other thing is. I think the Kings are planning on Saturday home games is when they're wearing this jersey. I do believe they are planning on trying to wear it on the road a couple times as well. I don't know how confirmed that is. I saw John Hoven was reporting today on Mayor's Manor that they're trying to do kind of like a color rush in Anaheim.
Interesting.
So in Anaheim would wear their orange jerseys. The Kings would wear their silver, black, and it'd be an all-color, no white jersey game. I think they need exception for the league to do that. Obviously, those colors are very different, so I would think the league would be okay with it, but that's something they need permission for. And then John was also reporting that they may wear it actually in Colorado, so that means we have to start talking about the Avalanche again. But that would be potentially a game in Colorado where they might wear it on the road as well. So a couple times on the road, but all the Saturday games, I think there's 10 of them this year that the Kings are going to wear that third jersey, and it is a good looking jersey. You mentioned the helmet, but a different font on the back on the numbers and letters, and I thought it looked pretty sharp. Unfortunately, the Kings, they didn't do too many memorable things in the jerseys, but they look great.
Well, okay, I do want to talk about a couple memorable things. First of all, 877-710-ESPN, 877-710-ESPN is where you can call in and get with us and hang out and talk about this game or talk about the season, talk about the Kopi-Tour. Yes, this is a team that had the best record in the league at home last year, the best record in franchise history at home, and opens it up with a bit of a whimper, clearly. But we are here to help you cope with the losing. That's what Kings Talk is about. The winning is easy, Jared. The winning is easy. No one even needs to call when it's a win, right? Everyone's just home celebrating. The losing, we are here to help you deal with that. And again, it's a long season. It's not about tonight. It might be about comparing yourself to the Avalanche, but it's not about this one game, Jared. So again, 877-710-ESPN. You can get on with us, and you can be a part of Kings Talk right here. Now, when this game started, I looked at you and I said, I want to be on the record for something. The Kings are likely not going to win these two games to start the season. It felt to me like a split at best here when you're looking at Colorado and Vegas. What a way to start the season, by the way. Not just back-to-back games, back-to-back.
And you want to go to the third game?
They're
playing against Winnipeg,
and then Winnipeg.
The President's Trophy winner from last year.
So this is a brutal start. First of all, we'll talk about these two games, and then we'll get to Winnipeg. But these two games, I was reading two prognostications today about who's going to be in the Stanley Cup Final. And out of the Western Conference, guess who those teams were? The Colorado Avalanche was in one of them, and in the other one I read, it was the Vegas Golden Knights. So here you go, Kings. Congratulations. Now, at least it's not Edmonton you're playing to start the season. Nobody wants to see that. But as part of the Kopi-Tour, as it begins, you're hosting the Avalanche, which is no treat. And now you're in Vegas. Hello, Mitch Marner. That's going to be an interesting one there. But I thought this was going to be a split right out of the gate. There's still a chance at that. They took care of one part of the split. They need to take care of the other part of that. But this team, for 15 minutes, looked incredibly spirited and looked toe-for-toe with Colorado. I thought the turning point in this game, as much as I said it was about the second period, the end of the first period, that could have gone either way. The hit on Fogle was devastating. I mean, it was really, I told you, and I know it's not quite at that level, but I said it's got a little Lindros Stevens in there. I mean, it was head down Fogle and just clobbered. Clean hit, by the way, I thought. And then to go at the fight there in that moment, it felt like, wow, maybe that's going to be a spark. And unfortunately, it turns into a penalty against the Kings. And then they have to start the second period on their heels. They do kill that penalty, but in the end, it was too much energy at that point sustained on killing penalties. Then another penalty right after that. And as you said, playing on their heels, killing penalties. And in that second period, really, 5 shots on goal in the second period. I thought that really told the story of the game. But, Jared, I want to ask you this. When you look at this game as a measuring stick for where the Kings want to be, and, of course, in the division where they want to be eventually, in the Western Conference where they want to be, you see Colorado playing at a level where it seems like really a carryover from last season. It almost seems seamless in my eyes for where Colorado is. This is close to where they were last season, and now they look like they're still at that level. The Kings, who had an outstanding regular season, at home, looked like obviously this would be a drop-off from what – is there anything that you see long-term from this game that you'd want to say, all right, that's got to be shorn up?
I mean, yeah, a lot of things there. I think, first of all, I think that you're absolutely right. The Kings, this is a bit of a measuring stick when you're playing a team like Colorado, when you're playing a team like Vegas, Winnipeg, etc. But I think that's where the disappointment comes for the Kings is because their top 9 forwards – they're the exact same as from last year. There's nobody that they brought in that's like, oh, this guy is going to put us over the top offensively. Then you look at the fourth line. Okay, well, Alex Turcotte and Jeff Malott ended the season on the team as well. The only new player that was in the lineup forward-wise was Yoel Armia. Now Corey Perry is a guy that's going to be in the mix at some point, so long-term he's going to be back. But that forward group was good enough last year. Oh. They were fantastic, right? They ended the season in great shape. The long-term thing that I think we're going to probably get calls about is the defense. And I think that's where, look, the forwards, they weren't on their game tonight, but they've proven over the course of last season that this is a blip on the radar, right? We know those guys have talent. We know there's plenty of guys that can put the puck in the net. They weren't good tonight, period. They weren't good enough. But that's not something you have to worry about long-term because you've seen what they can do for you. The difference is on defense. There's more changes. Vladislav Gavrikov leaves to go to New York. he didn't have the best game tonight for the Rangers. The Rangers got shut out in their home opener to Pittsburgh, so he wasn't doing great things tonight for them, but he is a hole that the Kings tried to fill. They have 2 new defensemen with Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin, who didn't have great nights.
Well, I want to stop right there. I just want to say something. I was telling everybody that there was excitement. I mean, there is. Look, there's still excitement. Dumoulin and Ceci. No, you're right. Dumoulin
I'm just telling you what happened. I'm not saying what's going to happen moving forward.
Before there were any goals scored, I looked at you and I said, who had that turnover and who had that turnover, and we were looking at each other. Okay, Dumoulin and Ceci. Now, I do want you to make a point that was very interesting when you and I were just talking amongst ourselves. Dumoulin and Ceci, who didn't have great nights, who I have been excited about. I mean, those are guys that come with pedigree. Those are guys that have Stanley Cup blood running through their veins. Those are the kind of guys you want to bring into a locker room. But tonight, defensively, there was something. I mean, again, Brent Clark's greatest moment is a cross-check in the back in a game that is completely out of hand, right? And then Dumoulin and Ceci both have awful turnovers in a game you lose 4-1 at home. But I want you to explain something. On defense, it's not just plug and play in this league. Defensively, for 2 guys that understand other systems elsewhere to come in, and with Jim Hiller's system, what is it like for a guy like Dumoulin and Ceci to get up to speed on this club to be a part of this defensive unit?
Yeah, I think there's 2 sides to that coin. So it is not the easiest thing with a shorter preseason for some of those veteran players where Jim Hiller doesn't want those guys playing in 6 or 7 preseason games. He wants them saving their legs for the regular season. There is an adjustment. So they had some practices. They had some preseason games with some limited minutes, and there is going to be an adjustment to play the Kings system. And you know why is that an adjustment? Because the Kings system is elite. When you look at their defensive numbers, they are one of the best teams over the last 5 years defensively in the NHL, bar none. Almost every single metric points to their shot suppression. Their goals allowed is low. They are one of the best defensive teams in the league. Darcy Kemper was fantastic last year. He was at the backbone at that. But so when you look at the Kings defensive system, which Jim Hiller prioritizes, there's a high level of responsibility there. There's some different things that those guys are going to have to learn how to do that they weren't necessarily doing in other places. Now, at the same time, on the other side of the coin, people who are critical of their play would say, okay, well, those guys are veteran NHL defensemen. They should be able to make those changes. And they are also players who have switched teams multiple times in their career before, so they've done it before. So that's what I think the Kings believe will help them make those adjustments quicker and sooner and be a solid, dependable defensive player. So, and again, I was telling you this during the game. When I was in Utah for the second to last preseason game, we talked to Brian Dumoulin after the game, and he said, yeah, I'm adjusting on the fly. And he was honest, and he said, I'm trying to do the best I can. It might be a little dicey the first couple games. So he was very honest about that. And I think, look, 82-game season, you're hoping he can play every single night. You're hoping that it takes him, between 4 and 6 games to work things out, and then smooth sailing the rest of the way, and those numbers will work themselves out. So that's kind of what I was telling you.
710 ESPN.